to the start of our program. This is, of course, Seeing Stars, Tales of the Night Sky. I'll be walking you through quite a few different aspects of what we might see up there, what's going on in our night sky. My name is Gemma, and I'll be guiding this program tonight. But before I get started, I do like to acknowledge that we are on unceded Nakalpamak land. So this territory is asserted, and it is shared with the Stolo and the Sioux Okanagan peoples. I think that these are really important things to draw awareness to, along with the fact that, we're all coming here with our own histories. I'm a settler of English and German descent, and I always encourage people coming out to the programs to think about where they're coming from, what land they're living on, whose land they're living on, and what lands they're visiting, what stories are attached to those places, because I think that these are all really important aspects of decolonization that just make action a little bit more tangible. So these are things that I encourage people to think about at the start of my programs that I really choose to share. But I also have to share that I'm very glad to be receiving funding. Of course, without funding, I wouldn't be able to be here in front of all of you. So it's thanks to the Skagit Environmental Endowment Commission, which is a not-for-profit based out of the Skagit watershed, that lucky for us, we've got a part of Manning Park located in this watershed. So through a partnership with Hope Mountain Center, we're able to receive this funding. We're also receiving funding from Manning Park Resort. And it's just really nice to be able to be here with funding to be able to share all of these stories with you. This is actually going to be the last showing of Seeing Stars for the summer, so do enjoy and take all of us home to the school year and everything that you've got going on this coming year. It's been a pleasure being up here. But without further ado, I think that we should get into some important kind of little how-tos. I've got my Earth and my Sun here, and since, as I mentioned, I know quite a few people in this audience are probably going to be going back to classes soon, I thought it would be nice to figure out some fun little tips and tricks that you could share with your classmates. Like how to make a clicker work. Oh. Alrighty, so our first little how-to of the evening is, how do you tell what time it is? Now, let me set up a scenario. You are out, you're paddleboarding on Lightning Lake, enjoying this last sunshine of the summer. It's been a bit of a rough time, though, because you're not the best at paddleboarding. You've fallen off, your phone's at the bottom of Lightning Lake, your watch is kind of full of water and not really working anymore. You're hungry, though, and you are getting tired, so you know that you need motivation to be able to get yourself back to shore. To motivate yourself, you really want to think about what meal you should be hungry for, that you're going to make when you get back to shore, but if you don't know what time it is, how can you know what meal to be hungry for? Luckily, it's pretty easy to figure out what time it is just using the sun. So, every single day, as some of you might know, our Earth is spinning around in little circles, and it makes it look like the sun is rising in the east and setting in the west. Luckily for us, here at Manning Park, if you're out there on Lightning Lakes, you can just orient yourself north, and then you've got the number 3 highway running from Princeton in the east, Hope in the west. You orient yourself towards that highway on your paddleboard, you think, the sun's over there by Princeton in the east. I guess it's time for breakfast. I'll be thinking about French toast on my paddleboard home. And then you get there because you're so excited for that French toast. Maybe you orient yourself, you look up, the sun is right above you. That means it's time for lunch, and you've got that soggy sandwich in your back pocket that you can pull out and take a little munch of, but ooh, gosh, definitely not the best thing. Maybe you'll have some snacks when you get to shore, but that'll tide you over for now. Maybe, now this is the most dangerous scenario, the sun is over by Hope, it's setting towards the west. You're going to lose daylight, but more importantly, everybody else at your campsite is going to eat dinner first, and there might not even be any spaghetti and meatballs left for you. So get that mental image up there, think about that spaghetti and meatballs, and paddle, paddle, paddle. And then you'll make it home. pretty good stuff, but that's not the only thing that the sky can tell you. You can actually use the sky not only to tell you what time it is, but also to tell you what season it is. Now, during the day, we've got the sun telling us what time it is. During the night, it's actually the stars that we see at night that'll tell us what season it is, because these little circles that the sun does, or that the earth does around every single day, are actually paired with a much larger circle. The earth, during the span of a year, is going to go all the way around the sun. Now that makes it look like we're seeing different constellations at night. So we've got our Earth here in the summer, and we're going to see a constellation called Scorpius the Scorpion, because during the day the sun is shining, but then you turn to the other side at night and you see Scorpius in the summer. However, 6 months later in the winter, the Earth has moved all the way around the sun, and you're spinning and spinning around, and during the night, you're going to see Orion the Hunter, who's on the opposite side of the night sky. And then during the day, the view of Scorpius that you had in the summer is blocked by the sun. Pretty cool stuff. But one question you might have is, how on earth did a scorpion and a hunter end up in the night sky? I've got a pretty neat answer to that. So, our good friend Orion over here, he actually was a hunter living in ancient Greece back in the day, and he was a very, very talented hunter, I've got to say, but he liked to brag. So, Orion's going out on his hunting trip. It's going to be a good one. He's got his spears, he's got his bow and arrow, he's got his hunting knife, he's got his big hunting jacket. He's proud of himself, he's ready to go. Before he leaves, though, he thinks it's quite important to head on up to the palace of the gods and announce to Zeus, the king of the gods, that he is the most fantastic hunter in all of the world, and he's going to take down every single last beast that's out there in the universe. Now, I personally don't have too many rules of life that are on my never, ever, ever do that, ever, no exceptions list. But bragging to the king of the gods is definitely on that list. So, Zeus, the king of the gods, of course, he takes this as a challenge, and he creates Scorpius, a massive scorpion, to chase our friend Orion the hunter around the entire earth. Zeus says, yeah, have fun with these pincers, this stinging tail coming right after you wherever you go, Orion. See if you get any hunting done at all. And so poor Orion, he sets out on his hunting mission, only to see Scorpius right behind him, and he starts running and running and running and running and running and running and running, and Scorpius is still behind him, and oh my gosh, all of his hunting gear is so heavy, and he drops his spears, and he drops his bow and arrow, and he drops his hunting jacket, but he still can't seem to run fast enough. He's just so tired that he has to sit down and rest under a tree. Scorpius is right there. He's right on top of him. He closes his eyes. But he doesn't feel anything from those pincers, because Zeus didn't want the fun to end that easily, of course. You know, once you've got this amazing chase going, if you're the king of the gods, you can just take Orion the hunter and Scorpius the scorpion and turn them into constellations, with Orion on one side of the night sky, Scorpius on the other side of the night sky, so that as the earth turns around in those circles every single year, you can watch this chase play out forever and ever. Pretty cool stuff. And so, of course, those are two stories of the stars that we get to learn about tonight, with Scorpius being one of those constellations we're going to see in the summer sky, and Orion being one that maybe if you come back in winter for skiing, you might get to look up and see. But I was wondering, who thinks they know how many constellations are up there? How many stories of the stars could I be telling tonight? Any ideas? Yeah?
300.
That's quite a few, yeah. Any other ideas? Oh yeah, in the blue?
84.
84, that's very close to our number actually. Right there? 86, yeah, that's even closer actually. Yeah. That is so close, you wouldn't believe it. Yeah?
88.
Oh my gosh, how did you know? That's amazing. Good job, everybody in the audience tonight. Good guesses. So, I really wanted to share some of the constellations for summer. I'm not going to go into all 88 of those constellations that we might see in the night sky, but here, where we are in the northern hemisphere, there's certain constellations that you're going to see when you look up and see the summer night sky. And I thought that it would be nice to share some of those stories of the stars with you. So, of course, as you do when I'm doing research, I went back in my time machine to ancient Greece, visited a friend who was around when Ptolemy and all those amazing Greek astronomers were coming up with these stories of the stars. And I asked if she would let me share some of those stories with all of you tonight. But she just laughed in my face and said, well, Gemma, why on earth would you be sharing those stories when I could come and visit in the time machine and share them with all these amazing people in your audience? So I'm actually just going to get to take a little stretch break back in Athens, have some grapes, hang out by the ocean, and my friend Starface, who is from ancient Greece, she's going to come out and say hi to you. But before we do that switcheroo there, I'm just going to draw your attention to this PowerPoint here. It was quite a doozy. I taught Starface how to use PowerPoint so that she could get up a nice display of the different stories of the stars she's going to tell you tonight. You can see we've got Scorpius there at the bottom, and we're going to put the stars up in the different kind of locations that they would be when you look up at them in the night sky. So if you'd like to, if you've got a phone or anything, towards the end of this constellation kind of collage that you'll see up here, you can take a photo, and then when you go out tonight and look at the stars, you can use that to figure out where all the different constellations that you're seeing are. So without further ado, I'll get my time machine music working there and go and find Starface. All right, see you later. Gathered here tonight. My name is Starface. It's so lovely to meet you. I hear some giggling, see some smirks in the audience. I know it might not be quite what you expected. I know Gemma did say I was from ancient Greece, and I promise I am. I'm here to share my stories of the stars with you, but the time machine, it gets some things muddled up sometimes, and so this British accent, it's just a byproduct of all of that jumbly time machine business. I really don't know what's happening, but I'll try and fix it later, I promise. So, I thought, for my stories of the stars, maybe we could get started with something that you might all be a little bit familiar with. Got the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper here, or as I like to call them, the Big and Little Bears. Now, the Big Dipper is inside of the Big Bear constellation, and the Little Dipper has Polaris, the North Star there at the top. There's a pretty interesting story to go along with the fact that these constellations were not always bears. Back in ancient Greece, Big Bear was actually a woman by the name of Callisto. Sweet, sweet Callisto. She'd fallen quite in love with Zeus, the king of the gods. Callisto and Zeus had a little bit of a love affair, and sweet Callisto was pregnant with Zeus's baby, but unfortunately for them, Callisto, she was impinging on something that was already there. Zeus had a queen of the gods named Hera, and Hera was not too excited that Callisto was having Zeus's baby. So, baby Arcus is born, Callisto is holding him in her arms, and Hera comes storming down from the palace of the gods and turns Callisto into a bear, as you do when you're a god and you're angry back in the day in ancient Greece. So Callisto goes out and roams the forests of Greece. Years later, her baby, Arcas, he's grown up into a young man, and as you do as a young man in ancient Greece, he goes out and wanders through the forest, clearing his mind from a busy day in Athens. And as you do in ancient Greece, he brings his bow and arrow because you never know when you're going to encounter wildlife. And back in those days, you know, the method that you used to protect yourself was just no more wildlife encounters. Quite easy. Unfortunately, on that day, Arcas ran into a bear and, without even thinking, fired an arrow, and that was that. But as that arrow left his bow, he thought to himself, gosh, I really should be checking if these bears that I run into are my mother. Unfortunately, as Arcas ran over to check, he kneeled down and realized, oh no, this is my mother. He cried his eyes out. He was so sad. Zeus, the king of the gods, heard his tears all the way from his palace where the gods came running down, but there wasn't too much he could do, aside from turn both Arcas, grieving, and Callisto, with the arrow in her, into constellations. Now they're reunited together as mother and son here in the night sky. The Big and Little Dipper, baby and mother bear. And aside from being a touching story, you know, this does provide you with an amazing way to know where other constellations that we talk about are going to be in the night sky. The Big Dipper is quite distinctive. It's quite bright here this time of year, so you can look up, locate the Big Dipper, and figure out where these other constellations that I'm going to tell you about are located. One last interesting thing that I'll tell you about the night sky is when you're looking at a map of the night sky, the directions are flipped from the way that you'd be looking at them if you were looking at a map of the Earth. So a map of the Earth, you'd have north, east, south, west, but then when you have the map of the night sky, you have north, west, south, east, because of course you kind of have to flip yourself like a pancake to look at the night sky. On the ground, where you have north, east, south, west, you flip yourself like a pancake and the directions become north, west, south, east. Pretty interesting stuff. So back to the constellations, of course. You can try that at home, not at the amphitheater. I've tried it before and it gets your good furs quite dirty. I wanted to tell you my next constellation story, which is about how even back in ancient Greece, communication amongst us humans doesn't always go so well. Now, this here is Botus, the herdsman. Arcturus is a very bright star right at the base of Botus in the western side there that you can identify this constellation using. And Botus the herdsman, some astronomers back in ancient Greece were convinced, yes, this is Botus here, and he's using this thing as a plow, while others were saying, hold on a minute, that is the mother bear, and Botus the herdsman, he can be over here, but that's the mother bear constellation, and you know, there's going to be disagreement amongst just about anybody making up stories of the night sky, so we've got quite a few layers to this night sky. However, us ancient Greeks, we didn't always have control over the night sky. Back in the day, there was quite a battle between our gods and some other contenders for control over the universe. One of those was Draco the dragon. However, unlike our amazing Greek gods who they keep things up and running for us to have a beautiful, happy life here on Earth, Draco the dragon, he wanted to have the universe for his to destroy. He wanted to breathe his fiery breath all over the Earth and tear apart the seams of the stars with his sharp talons. And he was doing quite a good job, that is, until Athena, the goddess of wisdom, she saw all of this happening and realized that there was no way to stop him but to run up, take matters into her own hands, brave his fiery breath, his sharp talons, grab him by the tail, swing him around, and throw him up into the night sky so that he would be made into a constellation and frozen in time and space forever. That's, of course, why his tail is in kinks like this, from Athena throwing him so hard. Our next story of the night sky is quite an interesting one. So, who here has noticed that in the summer there's quite a bit more mischief about, quite a few more practical jokes being played than in the winter? I certainly have. Maybe some of you have been hit with a water gun, or maybe had some mud thrown at you. Maybe there's some marshmallows that went missing here or there, but, you know, all these different things can be quite easily explained. Cygnus here, who is a swan, with Deneb, the top of the summer triangle there, as a very bright star at the top of this constellation to show you where it is in the sky, is actually Zeus, the king of the gods in disguise. So Zeus, he doesn't really like to come down as himself. He disguises himself as a swan, and then he'll play practical jokes on us mortals. So Zeus, disguised as Cygnus, comes down, plays all these jokes, and so of course the next time you get blamed for something going wrong at your campsite, you can just say, oh no, that wasn't me, that was simply Zeus. Can't you see that Cygnus is up there in the sky? You locate him, you show everyone, it's not my fault, it's Zeus. Works like a charm, I promise. My next constellation that I have to tell you about is Aquila the eagle. She's a good friend of Zeus, and you can see that there's Altair here near the top of this constellation, the next part of the summer triangle that you'll see during the peak of summer. And during the night, Aquila, she flies along beside Zeus, but during the day, she has quite an unfortunate task. Who here likes campfires, you know? Maybe propane fires while we've got a fire ban going on, but I do think it's quite nice to warm your hands and toes, to have a chat around the fire, maybe have a hot cocoa. It's lovely. Now, we have a really amazing mortal to thank for this secret of fire that we were able to get from the gods. It was a man named Prometheus who went up to the palace of the gods, snuck in, stole the secret of fire, and brought it back to us mortals to share. Unfortunately, the gods didn't really like the fact that Prometheus had stolen the secret of fire, and so they locked him up, and now during the day, every day, Aquila goes back and torments Prometheus. So, I was wondering, if any of you are out there stargazing tonight, if you happen to see Aquila up there in the stars, maybe you could point at her and say, hey, Aquila, please, could you stop bothering Prometheus? He just wanted to be kind to us humans and share. It's really rude of you to do all of that to him. Could you maybe pass that message on for me? Yes, oh, I'm seeing some nods. That'd be great. Prometheus would love to get out and be free again and enjoy a campfire with all of us again. Oh, my last story of the stars, I always save the best for last. This here is Lyra the Lear. You can see Vega, the third and final star in the summer triangle there. She's quite a bright star in the middle. And Lyra the Lear is actually a musical instrument that some of us ancient Greeks would play, and there was one man in particular by the name of Orpheus who was just incredible at playing the lyre. Just thinking of his music now, it brings tears to my eyes. It was gorgeous. He'd play of joy, of happiness, of a beautiful life that he was living, and his love, Eurydice, she would dance around him. She was so graceful back in her day in ancient Greece. Oh, the sight of the two of them together, it just filled my heart with joy. Now, Orpheus, day after day, playing his lyre, Eurydice dancing around until one unfortunate day, just after they were married, Eurydice danced and danced and stepped on a snake. Of course, back in ancient Greece, we have venomous snakes. And so poor Eurydice, she passed away into the underworld, which is guarded by two of the most stone-faced, emotionless gods you could ever imagine, named Hades and Persephone. They guard the gates to the underworld like it is the most important duty in the world, because of course for them it is, and so no one is allowed to pass through that should not be going. That is, until after poor Eurydice passed away, Orpheus, oh, he was so stricken with grief that his songs turned from songs of love and light and laughter to songs of sadness, despair, lament. Poor Orpheus, he was so sad about his love dying and all of us heard about it. Oh, I was crying for days. No one in Athens could function. We were so, so sad. We were just crying our eyes out. And it actually was such powerful music that Hades and Hades and Persephone, the gods of the underworld, they were so moved by Orpheus's songs that they let him go down into the underworld to see Eurydice, because they couldn't bear to cry another tear. It was so embarrassing as gods to be seen showing emotion. You know, that is my favorite story of the stars. It's just about all this potential that us humans have for creativity, to use our emotions for good. But I do understand that all of you living here in the 21st century, you might not really know what a lyre is, have never had to battle a dragon for control of the universe, or maybe you've never actually met a herdsman. These might be stories of the stars that are a bit foreign to you, so since it's not actually dark out, I thought we could practice making up some of our own stories of the stars with a little board that I made up myself. Later tonight, you could go out and look at the night sky and figure out your own stories of the stars just by using your own creativity, but for now I thought we'd get a little practice round in. Does anyone see any interesting shapes up here that they'd like to make into stories of the stars? Yes?
The blue one looks like a paper airplane.
Ah, paper airplane here. Been thrown very high. I bet you have very strong arms for that. Yes? I absolutely love that. A turtle up in the sky. Well, I hope that he has a warm shell to make sure that he's not getting too cold up there. That's quite good. Yes? A hockey stick. Oh my gosh, I hope that happens for the team that you're cheering for. I hear that hockey is quite big these days. Oh yes, the hand in the blue?
I see the orange ones as a flame.
A flame. Oh, for a fire to keep our nice turtle warm. He can sit and have a beautiful bonfire up in the stars. Thank you. Yes, in the blue or green? Yes, the fire and the stars, the beautiful flames. Oh, back there in the green as well? Sorry? Oh, well, that's quite fun. I do see that as well now. You know, when I set this up, I think I was a little bit hungry because I thought that I saw a little egg being fried in a green pan. And so maybe I'll have a midnight snack of that tonight. But, you know, for now, I'm just so happy that all of us are using our creative minds to think about these stories of the stars. And I'm so excited for you all to see the night sky tonight and know about all these stories of the stars that I've been here to tell you about. I do, however, have to let you know that, unfortunately, these old bones aren't too good with time travel, and this chilly mountain air isn't doing them any favors either. So I do think that I must be going, but I want you all to know that it's been such a pleasure to be here this evening. So thank you and good night. That is as long as my time machine music is working. Good night, everyone. I feel fully refreshed to come back and tell you all about the last little bit of this program that I have going on tonight. So, there we go. Starface left one constellation for me to talk about, which within ancient Greek astronomy is going to be Cassiopeia, the queen sitting there in her chair. But I wanted to use this constellation as a good example of the fact that ancient Greek astronomy is not the only way to see the stars. So If perhaps you were using Chinese astronomy, Cassiopeia up here would be a part of a bridge of kings, a chariot, and a whip. If you were using Arabic astronomy, then Cassiopeia, that in ancient Greek astronomy you're looking at, is actually the hump of a camel's back. In Siberian astronomy, it is the reindeer antlers that you might be seeing up in the sky. In Welsh astronomy, it's a court. And this all just goes to show that us humans have been using the night sky for many different purposes and coming up with so many different stories around the world. Now, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the seasons, you can use the night sky to figure out exactly when those seasons are going to change, because you can look up and see as the stars move above you exactly what part of the year you're heading into. It can be really helpful for people around the world who are figuring out when to plant certain seeds, when to move from place to place. In general, it's just so amazing that the night sky has helped us to live our human lives by informing us just how the Earth is going to be moving and changing throughout the seasons. Pretty neat stuff, but for people like myself who are maybe more amateurs at astronomy, not quite confident enough to know exactly how the Earth is changing based on the stars yet, an app that I was able to use in order to put a lot of this program together was something called Skyview, where you can take your phone and just position it up, look at a star, and it'll tell you what constellation it's a part of and what part of the night sky it's in. I'm finding it really exciting to learn about how, looking up at the night sky in my hometown is going to be able to tell me how the seasons are changing. And you could too if you get into astronomy, maybe download Skyview, use some other different aids to figure out how the night sky moves, because I'm quite excited to see as the stars are turning around for summer into the fall constellations, the winter constellations. It's quite neat to actually envision what we're talking about tonight. Hey, you're talking about all these human uses for stars, but when are you going to talk about all the different struggles that us nocturnal animals face with that light pollution that you were showing at the start of your program? Yeah, me and Bartholomew, we've flown all the way from Vancouver today in order to get away from that light pollution that you showed everybody a picture of. And all you're talking about is stars this and stars that, and no light pollution this and light pollution that. Are you going to talk about how, for me, a moth, it's really difficult to navigate around because we use the moon to triangulate and figure out a nice path for us to fly? And so when there's all these lights left on, we just get drawn right to the lights and we can't navigate ourselves around? Or how other critters up there in the night sky, that's silly, well that's me, I'm flying around. But us critters up there in the night, we try and use the night to camouflage ourselves, and then when there's all this light, we can't be camouflaged anymore. All these different ways that we've evolved to live our awesome lives at night, they just don't work anymore when there's all this light pollution. Oh my gosh, everybody, I am so sorry. These are my friends, Bartholomew, the little brown bat, and Maud the moth here. They're so right. I've been talking about all these different ways that us humans use the night sky to our advantage, but there's a lot of different things that these critters are facing when light pollution has become such a big issue. Yeah, we have a lot of trouble out there in Vancouver, so we moved to Manning Park where there's a lot less light pollution. Here at Manning Park, it's between a 1 and a 3 on the International Dark Sky Association's standardized scale of light pollution. But it doesn't have to be like that. There doesn't have to be places where it's really bad and really good. You can actually take a lot of matters into your own hands and reduce light pollution by turning lights off. Unlike other forms of pollution, once the lights are off, that pollution is gone, and it's easier for us critters to live our lives. Yeah, easier for these critters to live their lives, right? But wait a minute, Bartholomew, you're a little brown bat. So when there's all these moths gathered around different light sources, doesn't that make life kind of easier for you? Well, at first, my first couple of moth buffets that I went to, I was having quite a grand time, but then I started to develop quite a guilty conscience. I realized that these poor moths, they just couldn't live their lives how they wanted to, and I didn't want to just go and keep on living an easy life like that, so I helped form Bubbleprima, the Vegan Bats for Light Pollution Riddled Moths Association. And together, we at Bubbleprima have teamed up with some of the moths who we encountered under streetlights and on porches, and we figured out a strategy for helping move these animals to places with less light pollution. And We actually made up a song too, because we thought maybe if we shared some different ways that you can think about light pollution and help to reduce it, then maybe someday us moths will be able to move back to Vancouver and all these places that have just too much light pollution right now. So Bartholomew, could you grab the clicker for me? I'm on it. Woo! There we go. Oh, it's quite heavy. You got it, Bartholomew. Good job. Let's get the slide to change and I'll sing my song. Oh, I'm so excited to share this with all of you. Me too. I'm glad we made it out here, Mom. The sky is bright, but we're holding on until the neon lights are gone. I'm not so well equipped for a sky that is so bright at night. I just want to fly myself towards the moon, but porch lights are making me so confused because I'm not so well equipped for a sky that is so bright at night. The sky is bright, but we're holding on until all of the porch lights are gone. Lights are gone. Lights are gone. In Manning Park, they turn off the lights. It's so dark that moth can live her life because I'm not so well equipped for a sky that is so bright at night. The sky is bright, but we're holding on until all of the porch lights are gone. Lights are gone. Lights are gone. It really helps when you flip that switch and tell your friends and family about this ditch because I'm not so well equipped for a sky that is so bright at night. The sky is bright, but we're holding on until all of the street lights are angled down. Angled down. Angled down. The sky is bright, but we're holding on until all of the extra lights are gone. Lights are gone. Lights are gone. Oh wow! I'm so glad that we got to sing our song together, Bartholomew. Me too, Maude. That was awesome. I really hope that everybody took away some of the different ways that we can help to reduce light pollution. I'm sure they did. Like even just turning your porch light off. Maybe if you want to be like down in Colorado, you could try and get your government to make it so that your street lights are just illuminating the street and not all this extra space around them. Maybe you could talk to businesses and ask them to turn off their neon lights when they're not using them. There's so many different ways that you can help reduce light pollution. And like we said earlier, once you turn off lights, then we can go back to living our nice, fun, nocturnal lives like we did before there was all this extra light. Oh, speaking of living a nice, fun, nocturnal life like before there was all this extra light, you know, it's starting to get dark and I hate to be rude, but I do need to go and freshen up before it's time for me to meet all the other moths here at Manning Park living their fun nocturnal lives. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I think I might have to go. Well, Maud, I was kind of wondering, You know, I'm not too good at making friends all by myself, so would it be okay if I tagged along with you and made some friends by your side? Because I'm a little nervous to go out and meet anybody here by myself. Well, Bartholomew, as long as you pinky promise to stay a member of Vogelprima, the Vegan Bats for Light Pollution Riddle Moss Association forever, then I think that we can get along here just fine. Alrighty, pinky promise. Alright, let's get going. Thank you everybody and good night. Bye guys, have such a fun night. Watch out for that tree up there. Oh, you good, Moth? Awesome. Well, that was so nice that they joined us. I'm really glad that they got to sing their song and everything. But I do think it is just about that time that all of us head back to our campsites, start getting our cozy layers on to be able to go out and look at the stars ourselves. Now, I really hope that you've enjoyed coming out to this program tonight, learning about all these different things like the night sky itself, light pollution, some of those stars that you might see up there here in the summer. Thank you so much for learning with me, and I just want to remind you that on your way out, you have to stay in your social bubble, so just be mindful of that when you're heading down those narrow trails. Very exciting thing to remind you about is that we've got an amazing show tomorrow. Of course, it has slipped my mind. So tomorrow night we've got Animal Homes at 6:30 or at 7:30, same time, same place. See you then, and my final reminder is we do have a little moose donation bin in the back there, so if there's any change floating around in your pocket, maybe you thought you could have a fire or something here, you brought some cash for that, and now unfortunately there's a provincial fire ban, but you can put that cash in the moose bin, which is equally as rewarding. Food for thought, Well, thank you so much, and if you have any questions or anything, feel free to come up. Just don't touch the props, and good night.